if you keep printing at an alarming rate, they increase the entire monetary supply by 40% in 1 year.
I know. It's crazy.
Absolutely outrageous. So that's why we're seeing risk assets. Crypto is something that I very strongly believe in the long term, and the prices go up and down in the medium term, and that's fine. It's not just about the price of Bitcoin or the DVPN token or any other token in the crypto ecosystem. It's about building tools that are peer-to-peer and decentralized and provide more agents for us as individuals. And as those tools get adopted, then probably the market caps of these projects is going to increase based on adoption. But that's over a long-term horizon. In a short and medium-term horizon, the prices are going to fluctuate like crazy.
Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Despina, or you can just call me Desi for short. I'm sure you guys know that by now. Welcome back. This is a very safe space. So today, I have quite frankly learned so much that my mind is like, wow, I need to get my journal and just write down everything that I have just learned. It was that good. So I interviewed Mr. Dan Edlebeck. He is the founder and CEO of a blockchain end-to-end encrypted VPN company called Exidio. So if you don't know what VPN is, if you have NordVPN on your computer, it kind of protects you from viruses, scammers, people that want to hack into your life and steal your information, all that kind of stuff. Except Dan's company does this using a very secure end-to-end encrypted blockchain network to achieve this, which I think is amazing. I didn't even know this thing existed. Dan and his wife live in Puerto Rico, where they were working for the Peace Corps. I'm not going to get too much into it, but these guys are doing incredible things, and this interview really inspired me just to keep chasing my dreams and to not give up. I don't feel as though people feel very secure in the current world, especially online, where the majority of us live in this current day and age. Let's be honest, we spend a lot of time online, like a lot of time. So for me, privacy is a huge concern of mine, online privacy, and I just feel as though blockchain and the cryptocurrency network as a whole can really help us reclaim our privacy. So in this interview, we have spoken about what DeFi is. We've spoken about cryptocurrency. Is Bitcoin going to grow more? And what are the best meme coins to buy? We talk in depth about Jerome Powell and the US fiscal stimulus, and we talk about things like inflation, which is becoming a huge problem because everything costs a ton these days. And you know what? We covered some really interesting topics. So before I start blabbing away, this interview will be cut up into 2 parts. So let's get into the first part. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you all.
That's funny. I've gotten that a couple of times. A lot of people say I look like Chris Pratt, but then I don't know if they mean when it's Chris Pratt was fat or
no, I'm not saying that. No, with the hair. No, it's probably because I'm Australian, so I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I never had long hair until since the pandemic. I just decided not to just my haircut.
Pandemic hair, hey?
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. Yep.
No, I'm just basically the same east-west as Kyle, but I'm in Puerto Rico, so we don't do the time.
Puerto Rico, geez, can I come there? That sounds great.
That's why coordinating this interview has been like a little bit tricky. I'm like, I don't know the time zone that anybody is in.
I understand now. So can you talk to me a bit about why you're in Puerto Rico? Is it because of the crypto world there? Like, what's the go?
That's part of it, yeah. But my wife and I have we did there's a international service program through the United States called the Peace Corps.
That's right.
We were in Costa Rica for a couple of years, 2016 through 2018, and we worked with small entrepreneurs there. And before that, we originally we met in Chicago, And we want to continue to do service work, and we want to continue to like live in Latin America. But then we both went to business school. So she ended up in DC, I ended up in Boston.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
then,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we were in Boston
Oh.
for her job, and then her job went remote. And I was like, well, we don't need to be in Boston anymore. So yeah. And so we want to be in Latin America. We want to continue to use our Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty thriving crypto community here. So
yeah, I know, I've heard. Yeah.
benefit, yeah.
I really appreciate you guys coming on. I know like it's hard, right, with the time and all. I want to talk about you, Dan. For those that don't know you, can you kind of explain who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Despina. It's Despina, right?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Thank you. So, who am I? It's a great question. I think I question that every single day. I believe that I'm a jovial guy, people that loves humans, and people that is passionate, someone that's passionate about life and getting to know people, and also our opportunities and our rights, and providing a better opportunity for all of us. And that's kind of what's led me to leading Sentinel. But I guess my background, I've mostly been in the nonprofit and social impact space. So I studied business in undergrad, and then I took a corporate job after undergrad with Nestle, and I couldn't do it. They're like 11 months, make it a full year. I was selling products to Walmart, so I spent all day, every day at Walmart.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Oh man, I would get into Walmarts at like 7 or 8 a.m., sometimes 9 a.m. when I wasn't there right away, and I'm leaving at 5 or 6 p.m. at least. Just working with all the different Walmart stores, and it was challenging. It was Nestle was a great company to work for. They really took care of their employees. I didn't have a bad experience there, but I just couldn't do the corporate grind. And I moved to Chicago and worked at a nonprofit called Care Chicago, and that was amazing. I was there for just about 5 years, and they did job training and job placement for homeless and at risk of homeless. And my role was to actually help them get the job placed. So I worked with all the employers in the Chicagoland area, and I got to know the people in our program. We call them students, and really prepared them and make sure that they're ready to get back to work, and sharpen their skill set, and then prep them for the interview, and made those connections. And that was an incredible job. And CARE is also to this day an incredible organization. I still support it in Chicago. And then from there, I moved to Costa Rica. My wife and I were serving in the Peace Corps. And we helped small businesses on this rural island in Costa Rica kind of get off the ground and scale their businesses, because this island that we were on was pretty much like the entire economy was artisan fishing. So it's just a little fishing island. We helped develop an ecotourism local economy there, and we had a collective that we got like 17 different businesses together to share resources and collaborate to kind of diversify the economy there. And actually, it was during that time that I fell down the, I don't know if you've been following or tracking crypto, but everyone talks about the rabbit hole.
The crypto rabbit hole.
Yeah, pretty far down. I've always been like passionate about emerging tech, and been kind of like always an early adopter of new technologies. And I started researching a lot more and saw a ton of value in decentralized systems, and being able to cut out a middleman and be able to bring value back to the users of a platform. I kind of initially saw some of the concepts of like decentralization and like leveraging the blockchain, similar to some of the things that we knew kind of in like the Web 2 era, like with the sharing economy, with Airbnb or Uber, where we have these resources, and actually some of the value goes back to the people providing the resource to the network. But obviously still Uber or Airbnb takes a significant cut. But now we're seeing that we're able to bring value from users of protocols directly to the people that are contributing the value in the protocols. And that's what's led me to Sentinel. And so Sentinel is a peer-to-peer marketplace for bandwidth. So Despina, if you have your home internet connection in Australia and I want to get access to decentralized VPN, so I want to be able to route my traffic through your IP address, you're the one that's offering your bandwidth directly to the network, and you set your own price, and then I pay you directly for that bandwidth. So it's a peer-to-peer network for people offering bandwidth, and it provides the benefits you get with a VPN, but the difference between the decentralized VPN architecture that the Sentinel network is And a centralized VPN is that centralized VPNs say that they're not logging or tracking your data, but they can't prove it. And there's been many times where that you're relying on one company for your privacy, right? And then they're taking advantage of that, and they're not being honest with you.
Sorry, can I just cut in there? So just say that you're using, for example, NordVPN to protect you, right? Protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that even that they can't guarantee that they're protecting you?
Exactly. So you can't prove that your connection is nonstop end-to-end encrypted, and you can't prove no one that's logging the data, because they're the ones operating all of the nodes on their own network. And so they're running the exit nodes, and they could be logging and tracking and logging that data. And a lot of VPN companies claim they don't log data, and sometimes they've even said that they've had a third party audit that that their operations to say they can't that they're not logging data.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
Wow. God,
well,
Lord.
the whole industry, it's surprising. It's much more of an oligopoly than people realize. It's a lot more of a cloudy industry than kind of gray industry. A lot of the companies that people use, like the brands they know today, are actually run by several small companies that roll up to parent companies, and they have multiple different VPN brands underneath them. But it's a lot more of several companies that control the vast majority of the industry.
So who would you suggest, being in Australia, who would you suggest me as a journalist use to protect myself?
Exactly. So with the Sentinel network, there's no company, there's no company that can log your data. So you're getting a encrypted connection.
Yep.
So that's super valuable. So actually we've had journalists and we've had activists use the Sentinel network. There was an article that went out in Al Jazeera about activists that were activist journalists that were logging information about what was happening on the ground in Syria in a time of conflict. And they actually had changed the internet service providers were disallowing the access to a lot of websites and being able to transmit information. And so they were trying to about what was happening on the grounds, and they couldn't get access to Twitter. And they downloaded and used the Sentinel VPN, and they were actually able to communicate what was happening on grounds as a journalist. So I think that's a fundamental human right
definitely
that we should all have access to.
100%. So how does it work? Does it work? It obviously works on the blockchain network, correct? But can you kind of break down how it works?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. It's not very obvious at first, because you could offer your bandwidth to the network, and Ivy could be connecting to your network. But then where is your node that I'm connecting to hosted and stored? And how is that a decentralized architecture? And so that's where the blockchain comes into play. So all of the people that are offering bandwidth and want to earn income for offering their excess bandwidth to the network, they post the details of their node, their IP address, their throughput, their latency, all the details of that node that people connect to the Sentinel blockchain. And then anyone else that wants to connect to that node, just maybe I have an iPhone app, or maybe I'm using a desktop application that shows all the different nodes. That those things that are showing up on my application, they're only there because the application is calling the blockchain via API to display what is the information on the blockchain, and then displaying it on your front end application. So it's a decentralized network in that sense. And so all of the nodes are being hosted on the blockchain. That's
actually really smart. People are more and more concerned about their privacy. So in that sense, would you say that cryptocurrency is what people need to combat privacy problems?
So what you're dealing with, Despina, in Australia is not unique to Australia. Okay. In times of uncertainty and in times of chaos, oftentimes that is taken advantage of to, ensure national health or national security or whatever the name is that they use to be able to justify greater surveillance, stripping away of individual and human rights, and what the implications are of that. This happened in the United States, 20 years ago with 9/11. When that happened, it was a horrible and catastrophic event. But what shortly happened after that was passed what was called the Patriot Act. which was an entire stripping away of individual civil liberties in the name of national defense and in the name of national security. And there was an extreme negligent and like overzealous use of those liberal laws to be able to track and record people. And Edward Snowden, you know, came out and shared that there was a ton of human rights infringements that were happening from the intelligence agencies around surveillance and authoritarian overreach of these surveillance tools and stripping away of our own individual rights. I don't think there should be a camera in my bathroom when my wife is in there or in my bedroom. I also don't think there should be someone that's listening to and tracking everything I'm doing online. I think that whether there's good information or bad information or positive or negative information on the internet, people should have access to that information, and they should be able to use that to make their own informed opinions and their own informed worldview. And then from that, they can make their own independent decisions. I don't think that a technology in and of itself has nefarious or angelic purposes. And technology is in and of itself is a neutral tool that we can use to be able to accomplish things, to do commerce, to be able to communicate, to be able to get access to information. And we can do with that for good or bad purposes. But what we need is the idea that I'm really passionate about what I do every day and where I wake up every day is because I care about trying to provide more sovereignty and privacy and agency for the average individual online every day. And you know, using the Sentinel network and connecting to a VPN, like our company built the Exidio VPN on Sentinel, using one of those will help you get better privacy online. It's an easy tool to use, but there's not going to be one tool that's a silver bullet that's going to be able to completely combat, you know, privacy and data leaks and things of that nature. A lot of major corporations are housing tons of our personal information, and this information has been leaked, and it can have huge implications. So what we need to do is have better privacy online. It's a cat and mouse game. As there's greater surveillance, we need to provide better tools and products for us as individuals to be able to combat against that surveillance. So it's a process, but I do believe that either we throw our hands in the air, we give up and say, have fun with the camera in my bathroom, or we say, no, we're going to fight back. We're going to provide tools for privacy, security, and we're going to be able to have our own independence online. And that's part of the ethos of the entire Web3 movement we're going through right now.
That is incredible. Wow. I've been using NordVPN for years, and I am not happy with their services. I'll tell you that. All right. Let's go down the cryptocurrency hole, as you would call it. I want to talk about the US economy and inflation. Now, as you know, inflation has just gone up and up and up and up. I feel as though it's going to burst now any minute. Joe Biden, on the other hand, feels confident that they are entering the strongest part of their economy, which I don't believe. What are your thoughts on inflation? Okay, one. And two, how long before the bubble will just completely like burst open?
So my thoughts on inflation are that inflation is actually a lot more rampant and a lot more extreme than any of the official numbers come out. And I think the official number recently came out, it was around 6%, which is really high.
Yep.
But I think it's more like somewhere between 12 and 20%. It's at least double that, because they keep changing the basket of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and what are the products and services that are put into that basket. So like lumber or steel or some of the key things that you need to be able to build a new home are not included in that basket, but those are crucial to be able to be a homeowner and live your own life. I'm 36 years old and I've never owned a home.
Really?
And I've been in the housing market for a very, very long time because it's so expensive. And also not only that it was just finances, but it was also that I've definitely lived more of a nomadic lifestyle and I want to have unique experiences and I don't want to get tied down to a home. But it also had to do a lot with income and working in the social sector And with increasing rising prices in home ownership, it's really hard for my generation to get access to purchasing a home. But I think inflation is not a concept that is coming. I think it's a concept that is already here. And I think that the second part of your question, Despina, is, when does inflation run so rampant that we see, quote unquote, runaway inflation, and we see, extreme devaluing of the dollar, and we see, hyperinflation that could really crater an economy. There's like an old adage in the investment world. The markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. So I would not be someone that's like trying to pick up pennies in front of a steamroller, saying that, I'm going to be able to short this market. And I know when the top is coming in and everything's going to crash, because the irrationality of a market can go a lot longer than anyone anticipates. And also, while the US is printing a lot of money, it's not the only economy around the globe that's printing a lot of money. We've seen massive money printing from, almost every majorly developed nation with a strong independent currency. And so everyone's devaluing their fiat currencies. And so the dollar and the DXY index is actually relatively strong, because the dollar is still the global reserve currency. And while we see the rise of cryptocurrencies challenging that to an extent, that's not going to happen overnight, where all of a sudden, Bitcoin becomes the global reserve currency, or loses its status in the global economy. But so that's more driven by short-term economic impulses. Is the Fed going to taper its printing? Is it going to raise interest rates? I don't think it's going to raise interest rates. I think that they might slowly taper some of their spending.
Can I just cut in again there? Sorry. So, as you would know, Jerome Powell has been reinstated as a chairman of the Fed. But in my experience of Jerome Powell, all he does is prints. Would you have preferred a new person to come in, or do you think Powell will do an okay job?
That's a good question. I'm definitely not an economist, and so this isn't my area. I do follow this stuff, but you're probably not asking the most informed person as far as like global.
I don't mind.
But I think you're right. Jay Powell, there've been some insane memes and videos about him just printing like crazy. I don't anticipate anything changing. So I do think that the money printer will continue to go burr. And when it does that, I think that risk assets will continue to stay active and increase. So, in the US, everything is very short-term focused around the political spectrum. And they're supposed to say that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are independent of one another. But the market is too directly correlated with the political willpower to print. And when the Treasury says that we need to print, that informs the Fed, and then the Fed does so. So I think that there's no political willpower to remove the fiscal stimulus that's happening, because that could have a tank in the equity markets. And if you're a president, or if you're an elected official, and on your dime the equity markets took a hit, that reflects on you. So everyone is very short-term minded. They're only thinking about, how do I get reelected? How do I keep my electorate happy? And there's a lot of political special interests and a lot of lobbying that takes place in Washington on Capitol Hill, and that affects policymaking. So especially since Jerome Powell was reinitiated as the chairman of the Fed, I think that there will probably be continued inflation. Maybe it'll be at a decreasing rate, but there will still be money printing that'll go on. And I think that they're going to continue to try and prop up the equity markets. And if people are doing well in equity markets, then usually the crypto markets are kind of a beta play on the equity markets, as a further out the risk curve asset class.
But Powell doesn't really believe in cryptocurrency, though, does he?
I don't know. I think it's a complicated question. So the head of the SEC is Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, and he was a professor at MIT, and he taught about Bitcoin and the blockchain revolution, and I think he believes strongly in it, but he's also taken a pretty hard stance against most cryptocurrencies that aren't Bitcoin and trying to deem them as securities. But then the CFTC, the Commodity and Futures Trading Commission, has also kind of chirped up and said that they believe that a lot of these assets in the crypto ecosystem are deemed commodities and they should be governed as such. So I think that there's still a lot of ironing out to happen as far as how this plays out. But, you know, Jerome Powell can say what he wants about Bitcoin, like he can't stop it. So look what happened in China. One of the most extreme things that could have happened to the entire Bitcoin network ever. Probably at least 50% of the entire hash power of the entire Bitcoin network that powered the entire thing was located centrally in one country. And that country outlawed Bitcoin mining. It's an insane thing. That could be a catastrophic death to this asset. What happened was the hash rate did drop about 50% as people fled the country and they went to Mongolia and they went to the US and they went to Eastern Europe and they found different places to relocate, and some of them shut down for good. And a lot of that hash power is now back online, and we've seen how resilient this network is. So Jerome Powell is not nearly as powerful as the Chinese government, and they weren't able Bitcoin. So I'm not too worried about him, man.
Oh, that's really good. Oh God. I want to talk about Bitcoin. You know, it's actually quite interesting because there are quite a few people that still believe that crypto is a big hoax. It's not true. If you're going to lose all your money, what would you say to those people? Would you tell them that it's a bit too late for that, or?
Yeah, I think that narrative is come and gone, right? Like you're going to lose all your money or it's a hoax. That's almost kind of silly at this point. I mean, there's been a nation that adopted Bitcoin as a payment and as a currency legal tender in El Salvador. And the nation is also acquiring Bitcoin, you know, for their sovereign wealth and to put it on their federal balance sheet. For people that aren't questioning Bitcoin, it's better for, I don't like to beat the drum in front of someone and say that they're dumb or they don't understand this. This is very complicated. It's taking a little bit of political anarchy. It's taking a little bit of economics. It's taking inspiration from math and from code and from computer science. This is a very complex beat. And it's not something that you understand, you know, implicitly right away. So I encourage people to read the Bitcoin white paper. I encourage people to go to Jameson Lopp's website. I believe it's lopp.net. And he has tons of information about Bitcoin. I encourage people to go on a self-discovery process in researching the technology. And then you get a much better understanding of how it works and why it's unique and how it solved the double spend problem and how it's a provably scarce asset. You know, the CEO of one of the most biggest companies in the entire world, JP Morgan, shoot, I just had his name in my mind.
Actually,
Jamie Dimon.
That's right, Jamie Dimon. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Claimed just recently that he wasn't sure if Bitcoin had a cap of 21 million as its total supply. And he believes that's not the case. Like, that's just silly. Like, this guy, so wealthy, he's so well informed. He has so many people that are working in his company that are very knowledgeable on this topic. You'd think before he goes out on public media and makes kind of a fool out of himself, he would ask some of his advisors to get better informed before he makes these outlandish statements. So I think that there's a lot of misconception out there. And I also think there's a lot of fear. Hillary Clinton was just on a panel. I think Bloomberg just did like a New World Forum or something, that they put out this large conference. And Hillary Clinton was saying that she's threatened by Bitcoin and that it is threatening the status of the dollar in the U.S. economy.
That's what I wanted to touch on next.